doesn't feel right for us. And it takes a while of clearing that stuff away to be able to really tap into that authentic self. But when you do, it's like this most peaceful, great feeling place you can be. It gives you such power in your life that you can stand in and make choices from, and there's so much clarity in it that, you know, it's just amazing when you can tap into that.
I can validate that. I can really validate that. There's things that I have done in my life recently, as a matter of fact, that some people judge and that some people don't judge. And I really think it is me being myself.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, maybe, you know, with age comes wisdom, but it doesn't have to be that way, you know, where because of my age, I really don't give a darn what other people think. But as someone who, if I were younger, I would have,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then that would have not really been leading to my own authentic self.
Yes.
Right. So I can totally understand what you're saying. I'm living it.
And it does come with age, though, because the millennial generation is a lot different than, you know, us. But I'm finding even with the clients that I work with, they're women, what I call the next chapter of their life. So they're more in their mid 40s and over. And we've come to that place where we've been living our life for everyone else. Everything we've been doing is taking care of the family, taking care of this, and putting ourselves on the back burner. And then, but there's a nudge inside of us that's saying, there's more to you, there's more to life. That's not all you're here for.
Right.
Come and explore that and find out who you are and what you want. And you find it's different than what you thought it was.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I can see, you know, how the different decades in our lives, if we reflect back upon what we wanted back when I was in my mid-20s or 30s or 40s even, how that's completely changed. You know, I guess the core aspect of myself hasn't changed, and I really don't think it has. However, other than being true to who I am.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. So
that
was what, pardon me, that was what I ran up against the last week or so. And it was really a reflection, self-reflection for me to say, you know what? Am I doing this for someone else? No, I was doing it for me. And it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And once it was done, I didn't have any regrets. So this is, I know
so
it was the right thing.
You were aligned with your authentic self then. You were really living from that truth of who you are and what feels good to you.
Right. You know, everybody, I bring this up because you know what, I'm not unique in any of this. I'm sure everyone who listens to this has gone through that same, some might call it the dark night of the soul, or some might call it self-judging and worrying about what other people are going to say or do because of who you are. And I'm here, and Tammy is here to attest to you that it's so important to be who you really are, who you were put here for, or what you were put here for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are no mistakes.
No.
There are no mistakes. So I love it. So, well, thank you very much for that clarification. That's very helpful. So what is it, Tammy, that you consider an authentic self? What like, give us the definition of that.
It's being more guided by your internal guidance system, as opposed to looking at the outside world and letting it tell you what you should be doing, how you should be living. You know, we're born and we kind of have this plan. You go to school, you get married, you have this life, you retire, and you die. And we're here to be so much more and to live so much more. So just getting in tune with that. And it has a feeling to it when you're aligned with your authentic self. You can feel it. It feels really good. And I think even if people are struggling in their life, at some point they can think back to a moment when what they were doing or feeling or experiencing felt just like blissful. I mean, it was like the greatest feeling, and that's that alignment, and they're living in their truth. And we're so distracted by everything outside of us. So when we can go inward and live more from from inside, as opposed to letting the outside world dictate or tell us what we should be doing. Then we get more in tune with who we are and what's true for us, because what's true for us isn't going to be true for everybody else. Might not even be what we thought was true that was going to be true for ourselves. I mean, how many of us went to college and got a degree and then found out I don't even want to do that. That's and so I was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it's just really tuning into what lights you up, what makes you feel really good, that you and it's actually an overflowing share. When we're in our authentic self, we enjoy whatever we're doing and we want to share that with everyone else.
I love that. It reminds me of, I guess here's a really simple analogy, is someone who is gay.
Yeah.
And they've come out of the closet and they've claimed who they are, and because this is who they are. It has nothing to do with anyone else. It's who they are inside, right? And granted, what I just went through, or what anyone else goes through, it's all kind of like that. It might not be that monumentous, but it is kind of like that. You're just proclaiming who you are.
Well, even in what you do, being a medium, a psychic medium, and I work with energy, and I, intuitively channel and all of that. And growing up, I was sensitive to energy and spirits, but nobody else was talking about that around me. So I thought, well, it's normal for me, and it actually feels really good, but I should keep it to myself.
Right.
And so even in this realm, we hide who we are for a long time often, because people can't understand or accept it. And now I live my authentic self, and this is who I am. I share it with everybody. And some people, it makes them uncomfortable because it actually activates in them that part of themselves that's hiding, that they aren't looking at. And so I feel really good in being who I am at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's funny. Pardon me. It's funny that you would say that, because even in our genre, yes, we do come out of the closet, so to speak. And I actually have a blog post about that a long time ago. I posted it, but it was very much the same thing, because most of my relatives didn't know what I was doing. Most of my friends didn't know what I was doing. And then when I finally came out, I lost a lot of people in my life. I did. I lost a lot of people in my life. When I became ordained, I lost a lot of people from my life. And it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it threatened them, but they don't know how to relate to that, right? So it's really about them, of course. But you're right. It is such, to be able to support someone in being their authentic self is huge. It's huge. It might not be right for you, as you said, but I know it's right for them. I love that. And you have to honor that in someone else. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. So how did you actually get into all of this?
Well, it's just been my whole life of the energy and spirit, and it's just evolved over time. And every time I explore something new, some new modality of healing, or something that just helps to open me up, then I can see the next level for myself, and thus help other people in that too. And about probably a decade ago is when I really, really realized I can't live the way that I've been living and not be true to myself. Because when I would share things with people just casually, they'd have aha moments. And, the 5-minute conversation with you just changed my life. And I was like, oh, okay. But that was when I was really just sincerely being me and being open and sharing. And when you're your authentic self, you also go into more of a place of love, compassion, kindness that feels so amazing. It's a peaceful, happy place, and you just want to share that with everyone. So it just keeps evolving, and then I see other people and how they're living, and if they give me the opportunity, I share with them how they can make those shifts and watch. One thing that lights me up more than anything is to watch somebody have that moment where it clicks and they're like,
Yeah.
I can live like this too. So me
Mhm.
being authentic actually allows other people. It's like that Marianne Williamson quote, the whole, our deepest fear
Is
is
being
not
all
that we are
powerful.
inadequate. Yeah, it's just, but letting you know that when you stand in your power, when you stand in your greatness and your light, you let everybody else have the opportunity, if they're ready, to step into it too. Some people aren't quite ready, and that's okay. Sometimes they show up later, but you give them that ability to do that.
I love that. You're just being supportive of someone else owning their truth. And it's like you said, I too love that aha moment, or that space where someone realizes their own divinity, right? This is what they're here for.
Mhm.
This is what they're here for, whether it's painting or drawing or writing or pet grooming or building businesses, or it doesn't matter, right? We all fit into that one big cog, if you will. There's space for us all, and to be able to support someone else on that path is really huge. It
Mhm.
is really, really, really huge, because sometimes that little conversation is all people need to feel like it's okay.
Mhm.
Someone else is validating me. So
Yeah.
that can be just monumentous to someone. It really can.
Mhm.
It really can. And you might not even know when that moment is,
Mhm.
but just sharing it with someone, I love that. I love that. So your authentic self, or our authentic self, really is our ticket to freedom, I guess.
Yes.
Free to be who we are.
But we all want that freedom. I mean, it's our natural state. I mean, we want
Right.
our ultimate purpose. When everybody always asks, well, what's my purpose here? We all have a high purpose, and that is to the freedom to express and experience who we are as our divine beings. And then we express that in our gifts. Like you said, it might be a pet groom, or might be a heart surgeon, could be whatever it is that brings you passion and lights you up, and you want to share it. That is the gifts that come off of your expression of your divine beingness. And so, that's where your freedom comes from, is when you can tap into that. You live from a place of your own knowing, not of what everybody else is telling you, because it's always going to come back to the reason we aren't in alignment with our authentic self is we're listening to the outer world, and we're hiding that from ourselves. And sometimes we don't even realize it's hiding. And so when we tap into that, it frees us. It frees us to just be who we are and be happy. Because most of us, at least I know, especially, everything that I experienced when I was younger, I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. I was friends with everybody, but I didn't belong to anything. The
Mm-hmm.
groups, I wasn't I had popular friends, but I wasn't popular. I wasn't all these things. And when I really tapped into who I was, I didn't need to be, I'm part of everything. So I didn't need to be part of any of these little things.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's awesome. That's actually remarkable, that statement, because people always want to fit in somewhere, right? And I think it's maybe a label that we have to give to ourselves. Oh, I'm part of this group, or I'm part of that group, or I do this, but I don't do that. And I think, of course, when we're young, that helps formulate who we are and what we like and what we don't like and what have you. But I love the fact that we don't have to be anything but who we are. But who we are. I love that. So I've got a couple attendees on the line. If you guys want to talk to Tammy, please raise your hand by either, there's a little switch down below, or it'll say raise hand, or up above. It depends upon what type of system that you're using to watch or listen. And Tammy will be answering questions. However, they won't be necessarily psychic readings, but She will use her own intuition and her knowledge of the authentic self to channel some information for you that would be pertinent to what your needs are. Okay. So I do have someone in the chat room, which is odd because I didn't even open up the chat room. Yes. So Colleen says, plus being fake takes so much energy. It really wears you out. And isn't that the truth?
Yes.
That is very much the truth. Yes. So Colleen, you're on the right track there, girlfriend. So yeah, so everybody, if you're listening in and you'd like to talk to Tammy, please raise your hand and I'll get back with you in a moment. So since it's so freeing being my authentic self, I'm just using myself for an example. So I can look back at all those years of being worried or cautious about what other people are going to think. And I just think what a waste of time that was. What a waste of time and energy, you know? Because there's a saying that says worry is a prayer for what we don't want, right? So if you don't want to be judged, then don't worry about being judged, right? So I love it when you said that you weren't really any part of a group in school, because that's huge. That's huge, especially at that age. Oh my gosh, everybody wants to fit into something at that age, whether it's the cool kids or the band geeks or whatever it is, right? They want to identify themselves with something. And I think that's just part of finding who we are. Yeah.
It was challenging at that time.
I'm sorry, go.
It was challenging at that time because I didn't fit in and I couldn't seem to fit in. But, now I look back and I'm glad I didn't really go with any of those because I was always me. But yeah, at the time it was, as a teenager, like you said, you want to fit in. And my friends were in the band and they were having this great time with the band. I wasn't in the band. I wasn't over. Right. Yeah. So I rode that center line. And now I know that it was being more who I was instead of following what everybody else was doing. But at the time, I didn't recognize that.
Right. So were you the black sheep of the family or the oddball in the family?
Well, yeah, I've always done everything differently. Yeah.
I was too.
Yeah.
I was that person who just didn't seem to fit in. At least that was my perception. I didn't seem to fit in.
No.
I'm not one to go pushing, to push for attention or to push for what I want. I'll sit back and I'll watch and I'll listen and I'll learn and that kind of thing. And that has not gotten me very far in this world, but I'm happy with who I am because of it. So yeah. So anyways, what are some of the reasons that people don't live in alignment with their authentic self? Like, what could be the purpose of that? Like, even now, if I were to say, well, I can't do that, what would be my reason other than maybe fear?
Well, yeah, fear is part of it. But like you were mentioning before, the worry. So worry, doubt, fear, those are all very specific things that identify that you're out of alignment, because our authentic self knows that there's no reason to fear anything or be worried or doubt itself. So those definitely, if you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, anything like that doesn't have you feeling good, is indicating that you are out of alignment, out of balance with your authentic self. So the reasons that I found mostly are the three top ones. The first one is we actually choose it. Our soul intends to come in and play like the lifetime game of hide and seek. I finally came to a realization that's why we play it as children. It's because how we play life is we hide our authentic self from ourselves to ultimately search for it and find it. And we know we're going to find it. It just depends on when that happens. So we actually hide it from ourselves, but that's a chosen thing. So the other reason is, or a second reason, is that it's the conditioning and the patterns and the teachings that we grow up with that become our belief system that have us staying away from our true self, to fit in, to be loved, to feel like we're enough, to be worthy, to be all these things that make everybody outside of us happy so that we can feel like, okay, I'm accepted. And that keeps us pulled away from being in our authentic self. And I think the third one and I call it a dirty word, is being selfish.
Ah,
That's a big one. I mean, you're selfish if you focus too much on what you desire, or, you know, being that in that space. So we avoid it, because if we move into it, we actually think that we're doing a bad thing, that we better have some guilt over that, because now some way somebody else doesn't have something. And we don't realize there's two levels of selfishness. There's the lower one that most people function from, where you are very constricted energy and you're doing just for yourself, or it appears that you're not worried about anybody else in the process. And there's the higher version, where it's the self-care, the self-prioritizing, the filling yourself up first so that you have more to give everyone else. And that's the one that we really want to function from. And that's not nurtured, or we're not taught to nurture or cultivate that. Could you imagine? Sometimes I think of the classes we could teach in school. If you taught be your authentic self, how different the world would be, how we would be functioning from a different place than it pressing it. Everything wants to press it down. Don't be that. Because even sometimes when you are being, you have people going, "Ooh, we can't handle that." And it's like, but it feels really good.
right, right. Isn't it funny, you know, because I think back to like the 60s and even 70s when I was in school, how, you know, we had the hippies, you know, and then we had the burnouts, and we had, you know, whatever. And if you had said, you know, they are being their authentic self, they were being different, they're expressing their whatever, right? And of course, to fit in with societal norms, you better not act like that. You better not do that, you know? So I really believe that at that age, you know, high school, junior high school, young adulthood, they're still trying to find that authentic self, because they don't recognize that within themselves yet. And that's where sometimes they kind of go off the deep end once in a while, you know? So whatever it is. So I like what you said about how to like live in alignment and how to find that. So you had mentioned something about hiding that from ourselves. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, you know, this human experience that we're having, our soul chooses to come in, and it intends to have certain experiences for its growth and to complete, you know, vibrational energy of things. And part of it is that the journey is fun, or our soul believes it's fun. I mean, if you ask most people, they'd be like, well, this is not fun, but it was meant to be fun. So there's that hiding. And think back to when we played hide and seek. It was exciting to have somebody go off and find a spot, and we were all going to find them and search for them. But we always knew we'd find them. I mean, I know in every game I played, we didn't lose any child, so you always found them. And so our soul knew that about ourselves. So we had all these experiences that gave a fullness and contrast to who we really are. And we can look at it. So I also want everyone to know that everything you've lived up to this point hasn't been a bad thing. It's been for a reason. It's been to bring you here. I mean, if you're listening to this, watching this, you're in the perfect place for you, and everything that you experienced up to now brought you to here. So now you're awakening, if you will, to that search, to that there's something more, that you want to explore it, and now you can find it and uncover it and align with it and live from it and be thrilled that you are and happy that you are, and be in a place where you're confident in that. There's a strength that comes in living that way, not only just because you've come to a place where you can live that way, but from knowing yourself, from a confidence, from a self-trust level. Everything changes when you are living in your authentic self. You just stand in such a more empowered and powerful place in yourself.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny because I just talked about this last week on the webinar. It was something that I had heard. I was over listening a podcast or something like that. And there was a gentleman on the podcast that had mentioned that we all have that point of genius. And that was his point of genius, was his, you know, air quotes. And I think most of us would say, I think this guy's nuts. I think he's nuts. I'm not a genius at anything.
Mhm.
However, I do believe that if we are to find that authentic self within our psyche, our soul, that is a point of genius.
Mhm. Yes.
That is a point of genius. We all have that one thing, at least one thing that we are really good at. Doesn't mean we have to be the best, but we are really good at, and that sings to our soul. It tells us in part who we are or who we're meant to be, right?
Mhm.
It's funny because, like, the simple analogy of, like, I'm horrible at math. I can do business math, adding, subtracting, division, multiplication. I can do that. But someone who picks up this Algebra 3 book or whatever and is like, obviously they're in alignment there. Something like they're able to use that gift that they have, and that's part of their authentic self.
Mhm.
It might not be the authentic self, but it may be how they get there, or it may aid in how they get there. Yeah. What do you say?
Well, our authentic self is pretty broad. What I've come
Right.
to understand is it's our soul's expression of itself in human form. So it's like the doorway actually to your soul, and it's allowing it through. So anything that's coming through is from your higher self, your soul, whatever you want to call it. And I like to think of it, like he said, genius, your unique expression. So every one of us has something unique to express in this lifetime and to share and to be and to feel. And yeah, it doesn't matter, you bring your unique flavor to it. So it doesn't matter if we don't compare ourselves, because you really can compare, because you're unique in everything you do. So there's no comparison to anyone else.
Right.
They're just doing it their unique way.
Yeah. It's said that God experiences through us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that that's true. So there has to be someone on the low end of the totem pole for God to experience that. You have to have light to have dark, and good and bad, and to fully comprehend. And if that's the case, it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum you're on. God put you there.
Mm-hmm.
God put you there. So everybody, if you're in the attendee room and you would like to talk to Tammy, please raise your hand. There's a little link either down below or up above. If you put your cursor over your screen and wiggle it around a tad, that will come up. And then you can pick up the raise your hand button. So play around with that. Oh, we do have a question here. So let's go. And I think you might even know this person, or might have met him at my house, met her at my house. So let's promote Roberta to panelist. Well, hello there. Hello there. Let me unmute you, baby. There you go. Hi, Roberta.
Hi. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
This
Were you
topic.
guys in the same thing at my house?
Yes. Yeah, we were sitting right next to each other. Yep.
Yeah, hi again.
On the sofa. Yep.
Well, what you're talking about really, really resonates with me. And, I'm just at a point where I'm getting unstuck, I think. I've had, people look at me and they say, well, had this great, successful corporate career. And I have, and I'm thankful for that. But it's so unfulfilling, and it's all becoming less about helping people and more about the numbers. And it's gotten to a point where it's really affected my health. So I've been doing a lot of praying, and I always think, is there a right way to pray? I don't think there is, but I'm praying a lot. I'm meditating. I'm not great at meditating, but I'm keeping at it. I'm wondering if you can talk to the benefit of journaling, because that's one thing that I've been thinking about. Maybe I need to journal to get something that's inside of me out, that's stopping me from moving forward.
So journaling, I recommend that to everybody when in anything you do, because it helps you to express yourself, but to look at how far you've come. So when you're writing all this down, and it amplifies it. So when you're noticing things that are let's say connecting yourself to your authentic self, and you're writing it down throughout at the end of your day. Throughout my day, I noticed that this happened when I was in this place of feeling really good. And I noticed this, and, you know, like synchronicities, the magic of life that happens when you're in your authentic self. It just, everything feels good, it flows. I'm not saying that there isn't that contrast, but you handle it differently. You come from a place of compassion and love. So when you're writing all this down, you're kind of taking it out and looking at it again and identifying what you've experienced. And like I said, you can go back. So a week from now, you can look back and think, oh, wow, look how far I've come in this week, or how far I've come in this month, or how far I've come in this year. And so it really is, because we have so many thoughts going on, that just leaving them as a thought doesn't have the power of putting it down on paper. And you can type it. I like to actually handwrite, do the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
But it does. It allows you to express yourself and to connect more with who you are, because you're putting it down on paper.
So Tammy, if I do go to journaling, I guess I'm wondering, is it something that I'm like writing a story, or can it just be anything that I'm thinking from that day?
Anything. Just thought, you could put bullet points. Today, you know, this happened, this happened. I even will wake up in the morning and maybe have a significant dream and write about that to see how it's playing out, because it's kind of a message of what's going on in your life. So you're looking at that, and just however you want to express yourself. It doesn't have to be a story. It can be whatever feels good to you. And you can also add in things like gratitude, what you were grateful for today. And that all aligns you with your authentic self too, because it's very, you know, grateful and loving and in that place all the time, and looking from a place of all the good that's happening in life.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to absolutely add that to my journey, Tammy. Thanks very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Nice seeing you
I
again.
love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Roberta, for chiming in.
Thank you.
All righty. So let's move forward. Anybody else wants to talk to Tammy, please. Oh, my computer's going crazy. Hang on just a second. Please raise your hand, and then we'll get with you. So as you mentioned with Roberta, for instance, journaling or owning your authentic self can make a huge difference in your life. So can you go further into that, how aligning with your authentic self can transform your life?
Well, when you're aligned with your authentic self, you feel more at peace. Like all that struggling and that heaviness, and that's all being out of alignment. So again, let's look at what isn't being in alignment. That heavy feeling is like you're pushing upstream. Every forward step you take, 2 more backwards. You know, it just feels like life is this drudgery. And when you're aligned with your authentic self, there's a flow to it. There's a magic to it. Things show up, and most people can think back to a time when, yeah, the perfect job showed up, or somebody, you know, a friend or a lover or whatever showed up, and it just was all perfect because you were aligned with that. And when you're aligned, more of what you want shows up, because there's no pressure against it or struggle. Most of the time we're in like conflictual energy. Our authentic self wants this, but we think we want this because this is what the world says we should want, and it's in conflict. She even mentioned about her career no longer really being, it's not necessarily her authentic expression, her unique expression. It was something that fit. She did it. She's been successful. She made the money she wanted to make. She did what she wanted to do. And now it's that inner calling is saying, hey, now really express who you are more deeply. And I have this little technique to kind of tune into your authentic self if you want.
Wonderful.
So a while back, I channeled something, a message about what's called the core essence. So it's a space, if you're familiar with chakras, between your heart chakra and your solar plexus chakra at the base of your sternum. And like I mentioned, it's your authentic self is the doorway to your soul. So imagine that's like a little spinning energy ball, and it's the doorway that allows your soul's knowledge and knowing to come through for you. And if you tune into that spot, so everybody could just close their eyes or just relax and tune into that spot at the base of your sternum, and get a sense of that's your authentic self, the point of your authentic self. And that calibrates you. So anytime you're wondering if something is really being in your authentic self, you could go there, and if it feels like there's pressure or uncomfortable, it means that it's out of alignment. So to start actually asking yourself, is this in alignment with my authentic self? And making choices based on that.
That's interesting because it kind of lines up with, I was going to ask you about, like, for instance, Roberta or myself, because we're both a little bit older, and we see ourselves making changes in our own lives, or we know our soul is changing or morphing into who we're coming into, growing into. But what can someone do if their fear is holding them back from being that authentic self?
Well, that's usually based upon the layers of conditioning and programming. So there's probably a little more clearing work there of like letting go of that old patterns that have you stuck in that place. But for me, it really is just sitting down and even making lists, like, in journaling, but make more of like a list of all the things that feel good in your life. Start really noticing what feels good. And you can make the one half of the list, like the things you don't want or don't feel good. And then do the opposite on on the other side of a piece of paper and fold it in half and start looking at the side that is more connected to what you want and who you are. So it's little tiny exercises of just focusing on what do we like. Because if you talk to most people, we've been kind of conditioned to say, I don't like this. I don't want this. We go to the negative side, even if we try to make it positive. So if we can just focus more on what feels good, the more you feel good, the more you're aligned. Feeling good equals alignment. So
that's really, it's powerful. It really is powerful. So everybody, you have one last chance. If you have a question for Tammy, please raise your hand, and then she'll help you with becoming your authentic self or living into that truth. So Colleen, again in the chat room, writes, we all have something within us that will make our souls sing. That is our point of genius. You're right. You're very much right. For me, it's artwork and helping other people and teaching other people. And yeah, I love that. I really love that, because you're right. I like to see that aha moment in people. So, oops, somebody just raised their hand and then I lost them. Where are they? Oh, here's Joe. I'm going to promote Joe to panelist. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi, you're kind of in the dark. We can't see your face.
Okay. How's that? Any better?
Oh, that's much better. Thank you. We can see half of you because it must be the way you're sitting against the windows.
I'm sitting against the window. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say hi. Thank you for
Oh,
this.
that's great.
This is some good stuff. I'm just excited. I had to pipe
Good.
say hi, and I appreciate being here, and thanks. I just, you meet people, and as you go along your path, you come into some certain things. This has been great. Tammy, I got to meet her, and actually through her, my wife kind of got involved in trying to figure out things as well. And that's really been great. I'm just want her involved as well, because it just feels so good. And that's so important. And that's one thing I learned from a friend, Kevin, who says, if it feels good, it is good. And I always love that. But thank you for this. And I appreciate it, because I'm learning to get more into my authentic self, but it's not an easy thing when you've been programmed all these years, but you can feel the feeling of it, how good it is, and how much, I don't know, it's a good feeling. It's unexplainable. You can't really explain the feeling, but it's just fantastic. It's like when you can be honest with yourself, and that's it. So thank you.
I think that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for sharing with us. That's lovely. I love to have people come on where they can express their truth and share how their life is so much different now that they've found who they are. They've found spirit, they found the universe, and how to flow with the universe instead of, butt heads with it, right? I love that. So let's, you know what, Colleen finally figured out how to raise her hand, so let's get her on. She's been chatting with us in the chat room. Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
Okay, so how do we help our kids?
Oh, good one.
Well, the best way to help anyone is by being an example. Resistance comes up automatically when you start to tell someone what they should be doing. But if you show them through your experience of it, then people are more apt to go, well, how do I do that? Or what are you doing? And with your kids, they're going to be more in tune with you and sensing what's shifting in you. And like I said earlier, when I get around people, other people, I actually activate that within them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're being your authentic self, you're actually giving your children permission energetically to be their authentic self. So the way you communicate in your relationship with them will shift and will help them to be that too, and go out into the world with more strength in that, because they're seeing it from you and they're knowing it's okay. That's a big thing. When we don't feel like we can be our authentic self or who we really are, then we hide that even more. So if you're giving them a space because you're experiencing it and you're letting them experiencing it, then that will help it to grow for them too.
Okay, cool. So I'm doing the right thing.
Colleen, I'm really excited that you're opening that up to your kids, because it's so important. As Tammy and I talked earlier about, especially school age kids or young adults even, how we don't know who we are yet.
Mm-hmm.
And by you encouraging your kids, it's almost like you're saying, it's okay to be in that space.
Right.
It's okay to be in that space. It's okay to not know who you are or where you're going to be in 10 years or 5 years. So I love that. Right. So
Yeah,
appreciate themselves.
I told Nadia that, yourself,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to limit yourself? I mean, you're like, I don't know. It's like, I don't feel that's right at this point. It's like, I felt weird. I was in the odd squad. I didn't belong. I belonged to everyone. I didn't fit in anywhere. And now people walk up to me, hey, how you doing? What are you up to? I'm like, I didn't even know you knew I existed.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Uh-huh. It is crazy. It is crazy that I love that you say it's the odd squad. I love that. I love that because, yeah, as we talked earlier, I felt like I was in the odd squad too. I didn't really fit in anywhere. So it's nice. It's nice that you're able to acknowledge that and help Nadia to understand that it's okay to be that odd squad.
Mm-hmm.
That not being the odd squad, which is what she's probably desperately doing, is she's wanting to fit in, and then that will label her.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it does offer contrast for her too. So exploring, knowing that it's okay to be who she is and still do that allows her to understand it for herself. It's like my son, when he was growing up, he did what mom said. And then as he became a young adult, he started going off in his own direction. I'd be like, well, this is how I raised you. And he said, you know what you taught me? The biggest thing was to ask why and to ask questions. So he goes out and instead of just accepting my answers, he goes and investigates and he learns more about it and he makes his own choices, and he's an amazing human being. So I really think I'd rather have him do that than just listen. But I gave him the space to be that person, and that's what you do for her, is let her be. And a big thing I found too is permission. When we're younger, everybody else tells us what to do. We really don't give ourselves permission. So as we get older, we forget about that. So it's like giving her permission and offering her the ability to give herself permission to be whatever she wants to be.
Yeah, and letting her step back and look at things from a third person, because, all right, she was friends with someone who was mutual friends with someone else. She liked the way that they were treating the third person. And so she tried to align herself with that person. It's like, no. That's not how you get. You can't fake being something and come out happy.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, you can't fake who you are not. You're right. You're not going to be happy. That's just the way it is. So, Colleen, as always, it was lovely talking to you, and thank you so much for listening in. I really appreciate you, dear.
Thank you
for having me on.
Oh, are you kidding? This was great. Thank you so much. All righty. So we had mentioned you having a takeaway from this, a little freebie. Can you explain to us what that is, Colleen? Or Tammy, pardon me?
Well, what it is it's a first step in helping you to really be able to align more with your authentic self. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of that conditioning and old patterns that keep us kind of blocked up there. So by getting centered and being more in the present moment, you can hear that still small voice of your authentic self better, because that noise keeps us from being able to do that. So what this is helping you call back your energy, because we all have 100% of our energetic resources available, but again, in how we've been taught, we don't know that we've been giving away all of our energy. So we're actually functioning from this like empty container of depletion, and it even shows up in physical ailments like fatigue and all the. I've given so much, there's nothing more to give. So this exercise will really help you fill yourself back up to full, to be able to come with more clarity and more focus, to feel stronger in your own energy and be able to give from an overflow instead of a depletion. And just really, it's something that you want to do like every night before you go to bed, like you brush your teeth or you shower or whatever you do daily, is to call back your energy. And then you'll make choices of where you want to give it out to, rather than all these things and people and situations that have it. So you really feel quite different, more centered and focused when you can do that. So that's my gift to everybody, is to help them with that, with one of the first steps in really being able to then connect with their authentic self.
I love that. I love that very much. So lastly, can you once again share how your listeners can get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. My website, as you mentioned, is createbyvibration.com. You can email me at tammy@createbyvibration.com. And I offer a complimentary soul discovery session so that we can talk and go deeper and see where you're at, where you want to be, and how we can really get you to that place by tuning into your authentic self more and bringing it all into alignment for you. So you can contact me for that. There's links on my website to request a session.
Wonderful. I think this is so important for so many different people, for so many different reasons even. I just, walking, it's kind of a funny thing at this time of year. I go through my business and I see so many people that are just like zombies. They're like just cruising along, but there's no meaning to their life. Is this all there is? You're lucky if you've gotten to that question, because then you realize that there's got to be more. But I see so many people that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and maybe even 60s saying, like, I'm just not happy. There's got to be more. There's got to be more reason for me being. And that's where you come in, my dear. That's where you come in. So, gosh, I wish you well with this. I think this is so needed.
Thank you.
So thank you, my dear.
Thank you for having me and
getting
the message out so that people can align with their authentic self and know that they want to.
All right. Take care, my dear.
Okay, you too. Bye.
All right, everybody. So Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how important I feel like this is, because you know what? I'm speaking from my authentic self, knowing that I've been there. I've been in that place where I'm not being my true self. I'm not being true to me. I'm not being true to who I am and who I know God wants me to be. And I'm sure that there's some of you listening in or watching, as it were, that have been through that, right? And this can be a fast track for you to tune into that, to understand and vibrate to your own individual authentic self quicker without having to go through all the pain. And that's where Tammy comes in to help steer us, direct us into who we need to be. So until next week, my little chickadees, may you seek the divine, be the divine, and you'll reap the divine. God bless.